All right, hello everyone. I'm Matt Petersen, NAGDA's Executive Director. Welcome to another NAGDA Connect Conversation. So today we're going to start off 2026 by talking to one of our most active and favorite members, BART. So that's Bay Area Rapid Transit from the San Francisco Bay Area. They've been working to improve their plan in several ways, and today we're going to talk about some of their successes. So innovation is often a word that we'll use. That's the buzzword when we hear when we talk about plans that are doing new things. We're going to cover some innovative ideas today, but what I really like about what BART does and their approach is they think about innovation, but it's grounded in a deep understanding of the fundamentals of the plan, what's available, and how they can best use what's available to accomplish specific goals for their population. So joining me today to talk about the plan at BART are two longtime NAGDA members. So to start, could each of you just introduce yourselves and describe your respective roles at the plan? Winta, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Winta Berhane, and I am currently the manager of benefits at BART. So my role is to educate our employees. I sit and on our committee, and I really am a fan of investing. And so I really enjoy it. I have a background in HR, both in private and public sector. So 401A, 457, and 401K. And so happy to be here. And I'll pass it on to Marcus.
I'm Marcus Wu. I'm a partner of the law firm of Pillsbury, Winthrop Shaw Pittman, and I focus almost exclusively on retirement plans, payroll tax, and benefits compliance issues for public agencies. A large part of my practice involves advising on 457B, 401A, 401K, 403B plans, particularly around the intricacies of how those plans work, which we'll get into today. I also spend a lot of time with payroll teams, record keepers, benefits administrators. I'm actually outside legal counsel to the investment committee for BART's two defined contribution plans, a 457 and a 401A plan. And I'm excited to talk today about how the committee's work is translated into real results for employees.
Yeah, well, we're excited to get it going. So this actually started from you two, the idea for this. So this was a conference session proposal that you had submitted about maximizing your 457 and 401A plans, which I thought was a really great proposal. It didn't quite make it into the agenda. It's a high bar. It's tough to get in. We only have so many spots. But I'm glad we had a chance to talk about this experience. So Winta, if you could you talk a little bit just about the plan in general at BART, and then what drove you to make the proposal? What did you see that you thought you could share with everyone?
Absolutely. So BART has two plans, a 457B and a 401A. So the 457B is employee only, the 401A is employer contributions. And, one thing that drove us to make the proposal is that we have a 92% participation rate in the 457B, and we don't have an auto-enrollment feature. So people are, yeah, thank you. People are voluntarily enrolling in our plan. And so with our 457B, we have the pre-tax option and the Roth option. So we implemented Roth way before it became a requirement through Secure 2.0. Additionally, we have a investment plan committee, as Marcus mentioned. And so we have members on there, and really the committee serves as a fiduciary. And so the committee selects investments, the service providers, monitors what's going on in the market, and if needed to pivot in any area, we'll do that. And we also have Mission Square as our plan sponsor. And so just having great partners in the investment plan committee as well as Mission Square, I think really helps us with our participation rate.
And so you mentioned that you have a 457 and a 401A, and there are a lot of features between those two plans that you can leverage to try to get better outcomes. So what are some of the lesser known features maybe that people might not focus on as much that can have an impact on retirement readiness for folks?
Well, I'm going to focus on the question in the context of what BART does, which is offer both a 457B and a 401A. And I think that's where the magic is, right? On the 457 side, where we're accepting employee contributions, just to answer your question, what are some of the lesser known features? Most people are aware of the, what the basic limit is, how much they can contribute. And most people are also aware that if you're 50 or older, you can contribute even more than that basic limit.
Mhm.
Lesser known is the new age 60 to 63 catch-up feature, which employers at their option can add to their plans starting in 2025, and is available for future years. So that provides an even greater limit for employees who are age 60 to 63 by the last day of the relevant plan year. And finally, there's another catch-up, which we'll be getting into in a bit more detail, but the special 3-year catch-up, which is probably the most misunderstood feature of 457 plans. And hopefully we can delve into some of the details of how that works. In terms of 401A, that is a great plan if you have employer contributions or even mandatory employee contributions. It's a great idea to direct those types of contributions, again, employer contributions or employee mandatory contributions to a 401A plan for a bunch of reasons. One, the limits between the two plans aren't coordinated. So you can contribute to a 401A plan and it doesn't count against how much the employee can contribute to their 457B plan. So again, the two limits are not coordinated. 401A contributions, again, we're talking employer contributions here or mandatory employee contributions. They're totally exempt if they're designed properly from FICA taxes, Social Security if your agency's in it, and Medicare, which all agencies are in. So those are for that reason, the 401A plan offers a great supplement to 457 plan, especially if your agency has employer contributions or mandatory employee contributions.
Yeah.
Winta, I'll hand it over to you for.
Thank you, Marcus. So our BART team really emphasizes the differences between these two plans and really tries to get the information out there. So we use a variety of ways to get the features highlighted. So every year we create a document that highlights the limits, for example. So we have the normal limit, as Marcus mentioned, there's the age 50 limit, and then there's the age 60 to 63 limit. And then there's a 3-year special catch-up, which Marcus will talk about in a little bit. And so we highlight those and who qualifies for those. Additionally, we highlight the 401A. So we let people know that they could do the employee mandatory contributions to that as well and emphasize that those are two different buckets so people know that. And we do this in a variety of ways. We have an intranet page where we post that flyer. We print flyers and distribute them. You know, we have a diverse employee population at BART. We have people in the office, we have people out in the fields at the station. So we make sure that we have a variety of ways to communicate, whether that's mailings to their home address, emails. We utilize our investment plan committee, the IPC, to get the word out there. And we also utilize our plan sponsors, so Mission Square. We work very closely with them to work on email campaigns and posters and on-site seminars as well to get the word out there. And then we also have our union partners, which will get the word out there as well. So we really want to highlight and communicate the benefits of each plan and how important it is to save for the future.
That's really interesting. So I do want to follow up on a couple things there. It's complicated, right? I mean, most people probably don't know what a 457 plan is or what a 401A plan is. All of our members, I know for a fact, are trying to communicate these things to their participants. Do you feel like is it volume? Like it sounds like you're hitting them in a million different ways. Maybe just getting to the right people at the right times. Like, is there a special sauce that you all feel like you've been able to hit on that has been able to communicate this stuff to people in a way that they're accepting it, that maybe our other folks could learn from?
Sure. So, I mean, one unique thing that we do is that we hit employees when they're brand new. So our plan sponsor, Mission Square, will have a representative at our new hire orientation. And so they do a whole presentation about 457, 401A. And so people as they come on site are, on their second day, they're meeting with the plan
Yeah.
sponsor to learn about the importance. We also highlight it during our open enrollment. So even though open enrollment is more about our health benefits, we do mention the 457 and 401A during that time. We also strategically communicate during times where people are getting salary increases.
Okay.
We also do it at the beginning of the year. So, beginning of 2026 here, and we're letting people know there's been an increase, in the limit. So if you would love to increase
Oh, yeah.
your contributions, now's the time. We also have an auto escalator feature. So people can enroll in that so that their election goes up automatically so that they don't have to think about it. So that's one good way where people who are kind of set it and forget it people, they can enroll in the auto escalator and their enrollments will increase. Deferrals will increase.
Right.
Marcus, anything you want
I
to add?
should repeat that, I'll just add a couple of things that 92% participation rate that Winta mentioned, that's without auto enrollment. I mean,
Yeah.
these are people who are actively enrolling. The other thing I've noticed is that we have full buy-in from the unions. They are members of the investment plan committee, and those union members, they see the value of the plan and they do outreach to their employees. So when employees hear it from both BART and their union reps, that is really meaningful.
I was going to bring that up because I think that's a really critical piece that maybe gets forgotten sometimes. Having that ally on the union side to go out. So it's not just you running the plan who's saying, "Hey, this is great because it's mine." Having kind of that third party to verify a little bit um, that this is important really does make a difference. So, I assume I do want to follow up real quick on that relationship. I assume that's something you had to work on for quite a while, right? That doesn't just happen. How do you approach that relationship with the union to get them on board with what you're doing, other than having them on the committee, which is obviously really important?
Yeah, I think building the trust within the committee definitely helps, and building those relationships with them outside of the committee as well. Just knowing that, letting them know that we're partners, right? We all want employees to be successful, to be self-sufficient when they retire. And so I think it's just establishing a shared goal and a shared vision, and that really creates a strong partnership.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. So I do want to move on. So you mentioned Marcus, the 3-year special catch up for 457 plans. Could you talk through that a little bit? I know, most of our folks are probably familiar with it, but there's a lot of nuance to that piece of the catch up pie. So could you talk about that a little bit? And so maybe how it works and just some of the pitfalls that are involved with that one?
Sure, sure. I'm going to get a little bit technical here, but I think it's worth spending the time because this is probably the most misunderstood feature of 457 plans, the 3-year catch up and how it works. And right out of the gate, it's confusing because the 3-year catch up, the way it works is first you select a normal retirement age as an employee.
Mm.
And that triggers the period during which the 3-year catch-up is eligible. It's each of the 3 calendar years or plan years preceding the year you designate as your retirement age. So if
And
you say
that doesn't have to be 65, right? Like that could be a lot of ages depending on how you set up your plan, especially depending on who
that's
is.
exactly right. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. So let's say you pick, the range allows you to pick age 52. Well, that means in the 3 years preceding that, when you're age 49, 50, and 51, those are the 3 years that this opportunity is available to you, right? To make these special catch-up contributions. So to your point, what is the permitted range of normal retirement age? Like this is where it's confusing. It has nothing to do whatsoever with when the employee actually retires or even wants to retire. Zero. The only purpose of this term, okay, is to set that 3-year period, right? So now we get to the next question. Well, what's a permitted range? If you're saying you get to pick a normal retirement age participant or employee, what is the range you can offer to that person? Well, there's under the IRS regulations, the highest age is age 70 and a half. So that's on the one end. On the other end, what's the lowest permitted age of that range It's the age at which, the earliest age at which the employee could leave, retire, and get a pension benefit that's not been actuarially reduced. Okay. So in California, we have PERS. BART is in PERS. Most agencies are in PERS in California. Under the PERS rules, an employee who can either retire at 50 or 52, depending on when they were hired, and receive a pension benefit that isn't reduced by an actuarial reduction. What that means for agencies in PERS then is that their normal retirement age for the 457 plan can, for one group of employees, can be between 50 and 70 and a half. For the other group can be 52 to 70 and a half, because those are the ages, again, that people can retire without an actuarially reduced PERS pension benefit. So again, no relationship to actual or intended retirement date. The one thing I do want to mention is that, and we haven't talked about this, is that this special catch-up is incredibly beneficial. It can be 2 times the regular limit, right? So for 2025, the regular limit is 23,500. If you're eligible for the full 3-year catch-up for each of those 3 years, you can, using this benchmark, that means you can contribute up to $47,000.
Yeah.
But that's only available to the extent that somebody hasn't fully maxed out their contributions in prior years. So you look at the underused amount, and that goes into the calculation of how much room you have under that $47,000 total. I do want to mention one pitfall is that, and you have to be careful of this, once a person makes that election and and they're in the first year, so it's January 1st or the first of the 3-year catch up, it can never be changed. It's irrevocable.
Yeah. So all super important stuff. Especially how it relates to the pension, I think is really important for people to understand. So if you're watching and you didn't quite get it the first time around, you can rewind a little bit and watch kind of go through that again, because it is very technical stuff, but very important to understand as you're working through these rules. And it goes back to compliance, right? So there's a lot of compliance issues both in 457 and in 401A. Can you talk a little bit about, especially when you're designing this stuff, what are the things that you should be mindful of as you're thinking about how to set up these different plans, with your committee and with anybody who's helping you do that?
Yes, as you're configuring a payroll system or HRIS system, there could be some complexity just because each plan has a different limit. And then when you're looking at the 457 plan specifically, you have to look at the age bands that we've talked about. So the normal contribution is the easiest part, right? But then we have the age 50, we have the 3-year catch up, and we have the age 60 to 63. So it could require some more complex configuration of an HRIS and payroll system.
Okay. Yeah, really important to think about. And how do you use those things strategically? Like, how do you think about, how did BART think about using a 401A to complement a 457? I think that is a structure that is, there are a fair number of plans out there that use it, but it's not always understood that that's out there, as an option for you to turn on. So what was the idea behind that as you all made that decision?
Well, the plan's been around for a while. I think I've even preceded Winta and my involvement with the committee. But, I think BART has a fundamental understanding of the benefits of 401A plans versus 457. And, just to repeat, the 401A plans can accept employer contributions or mandatory employee contributions. And again, those contributions are totally, do not count in any way against the limit available to the employee for 457B contributions.
Right.
So that's a great benefit. And also, again, I'm sorry to sound repetitive, but if you direct employer contributions to the 401A plan, for example, if any of the employers listening have a match, and they're putting that match in the 457, well, that match becomes subject to Social Security if you're in it, and Medicare, because you're putting in the 457. All contributions to the 457 are subject to FICA. On the other hand, if it's redirected to the 401A, completely exempt from FICA taxes, and you're not reducing how much the employee can contribute under the 457 plan. So these are great advantages, and this is basically why any employer would want to couple a 457 with a 401A.
Yeah, and I think those details are really important because a number of our members think about, do I want to provide a match? But understanding that it can be a little more complicated, and there might be a better way to do it rather than just putting the employer contributions into the 457 is really, really important. So appreciate that. And something to think about if you're thinking about making that change is that there probably is a better way to do it than just putting those dollars right into a 457, which might not be intuitive if you haven't really thought it through or you're not familiar with a 401A structure.
No, that's a great point. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll add a little bit to that too, is this really impacts retiring employees. So not when people accrue a lot of vacation time that they're cashing out at the end of the year, they want to maximize their 457. And so having the employer contribution go to the 401A really helps people do that. So mostly, I mean, it impacts everyone, but retirees are probably the most happy with it. So I wanted to add that in.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And something that's kind of unique to us, right? And that you see often in the public sector. So a really great addition there. From talking to other plans that don't have auto enrollment, the normal number that we hear is somewhere in the 30s to 40s as far as participation rate goes. So it's quite low. And as we talked about a little bit before, communication is an important part of that. But what else do you all lean on to try to make sure that you're getting people in? You get to them early. How do you have those conversations with the folks maybe who aren't? I mean, you're a transportation organization, right? If you miss them on that first part, these are people who are out driving buses. They're on trains. They're all over the place. Are there efforts that you all use to try to get to the folks in the field? I mean, that's something that a lot of our plans talk about, that not everybody's in front of their computer all day. Like, how do I actually get to these people and try to convince them to save some money?
Well, not to sound like a broken record, but our partnerships are very important. So having that union partnership, where, they're at union meetings, our union leadership will be at union meetings and sharing the information with people. Also, our partnership with our plan sponsors. So they actually do site visits. So they'll go out in the field and do visits, and they also have a phone number available, an email address available, and they'll do video meetings with people. So it's not only coming from like BART, HR, or the IPC, but it's also coming from the union and the plan sponsor as well.
Sorry, I think you mean the record keeper. So the record keeper is
sorry, the record keeper.
Right. Yeah.
One thing we have these sliders. So they're little sliders where you can choose your age and move the slider, and it shows you how much you can save. So it's not only computer based where you can calculate based on age and how much you're contributing per pay period, but you have something physical that you can use. So it really helps people who may not be as technologically savvy or who may want something tangible to see. And on the back, we customized it to help people save. So if they save $5 a day, how much would that be in a year? And what could that money grow to? So we really try to make resources available that are easy to use and that really help people see how little changes in their real life can make a big impact for their future.
Yeah, that's great. We're talking about a lot of things like AI and online tools and robo-advisors. Sometimes it's a piece of paper that's in front of somebody, right? That they can actually manipulate and get, especially, like you said, if you're out in the field and you're not sitting in front of a desk, those type of tools are really important to consider as part of that communication process. But, in the end, all these things are aimed at creating better retirement outcomes for somebody, and outcomes have to be measured. And you all have been really successful in optimizing your 457, as you talked about, in your 401A. how do you measure that? How do you go back and look at the plan and say, we feel like we're meeting our goals?
We've done a survey. We actually did a survey earlier this year just to gauge how people are feeling to see if they want any additional resources. So we've done that. We also have an IPC website. So our record keeper maintains the website for us and it has tools. And so we actually look at the site visits. So how many people will visit the site on a monthly basis, go through that. And in our IPC meetings, we talk about how to encourage more participation as well as deal with customer service issues. So see if people are talking about it and how we can improve. So we really try to measure based on if we had any customer service issues, how many people visit the website, if people are increasing their contributions, and also engaging with the unions and seeing if they've been getting any questions, right? So a lot of there's a lot of different ways that we measure, but participation is just one of them. So we're happy with our 92%.
I know, but even though you're at 92%, you're still working on it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
higher.
yeah, we'd love to get to 100, but one day at a time.
That's right. I love our members. They're in this organization with the goal of being better at what they do, and you're a prime example of that. You've been very successful, obviously, in running your plan. I wanted to see if you have any final thoughts for our members that you want to share as they're trying to emulate your success. Hopefully they're all taking this as a bar. So 92% participation rate is like something to try to get to, even if you don't have auto enrollment. What would you say if you had anything, some last thoughts to share with them on how they can start to work towards the same goals that you all have?
I think employee communication is critical. So communicating early and often, explaining limits early on, reaching out to people who have not elected and who are not participating to make sure they understand the plan. So make sure that they're actively not participating and not participating because they don't understand. So we want to make sure at least, everyone is educated and, they're making a conscious decision at that point. We don't want anyone to feel that they don't know anything about the plans or they don't understand them fully, which prevents them from enrolling. We also encourage participation at raises. So, any employer who has a union environment, you usually know when these raises are happening. So it would be beneficial to do a campaign either right before or right after, just encouraging people to save. And also reminding people the money is theirs at the end of the day. Yes, it's being deducted from their paycheck now, but at the end of the day, it's helping them in the future. So really making it easy for people to understand, communicating, and reminding people that this is for them and, their future lifestyle.
Yeah, I think those are terrific, especially that point of, if you don't want to participate, that's okay. But if you're not participating because you don't know what you're missing out on, that's not okay, right? You want those people in your plan. Marcus, anything you want to add?
Just that, Winta's doing all the legwork. So she and her team and staff and the union members are communicating with employees. That said, before it gets there, I am involved with discussions at the IPC. So those discussions are pretty robust. And we cover things like how the catch-up limit works, the contribution limits, the COLAs. And that enables them to feel comfortable communicating that information to employees. So, it's a team effort. I'll just piggyback on everything that Winta said. And the last thing I think I'll say is that if anybody in the audience is in the Bay Area, try writing BART.
That's a great ad for BART. It is true if you haven't read it. So, one thing I'll say, I think really great point there, Marcus. Your committee has to be ready for these conversations, right? When you get into the meetings, when you're talking over this stuff, there's not a ton of time. Do you meet quarterly? I assume most folks meet quarterly. That's you want your committee to be ready to go and to understand this stuff. And so doing the groundwork to make sure that everybody's on the same page, really, really important. And obviously you've done a wonderful job of that at BART. So Winta, Marcus, I want to thank you for coming on today and having this conversation with us. hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Happy 2026, and we'll see you again next time.